Look at everything that has happened under Obama's administration and Clinton's administration and also Bush's administration. Does anybody believe that George Bush, who's now having his entire family vote for Bill Clinton, didn't know what was going on with the Clinton cartel? I've interviewed Larry Nichols in the past. Alex has him on. Everybody's got him on.
Sure,
Larry knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And yet people don't believe. So what would you do if you knew that Russian defectors have said at length that Obama was trained by them? Well, you'd say, I want proof. And what would you say if all of a sudden you found out? Now, come on, I want people to think about this. What would you do if 13 states and specific cities in those states, I'm going to name some of them tonight. I said I would, and I felt the Lord said do it now. I didn't do it back on 9/3 when I posted that. But what would you do if you found out that after limited nuclear exchange, 13 cities, 13 states, more cities in some states, and when I run down the list, I think you'll be surprised, that simply within maybe hours, but no more than a day, Russia and China together give the United States an ultimatum: unconditional surrender, or we take your whole country out. Now, someone says they wouldn't do that. Well, you don't understand that China's already on record as saying if they have to wipe out every man, woman, and child, and an equal amount or double amount of theirs should perish in a reciprocal nuclear war, they still have 700 billion. They still have 700 million people left if 600 million of their people disappear. So again, I'm saying, 1.3 billion people, you knock off 600 million, now they got 700. Russia has, demonstrated that their weapon systems and electronic warfare are second to none. The Donald Cook, the surfacing of a nuclear boomer, a submarine, takedown of aircraft, scrambling of communications, hypersonic torpedoes, stuff that Hawk and I talked about on the radio 10 years ago, and people say, yeah. I don't think that I've ever had to deal with, when you've dealt with people for 20 years that are the same mockers, same scoffers, and they use the same character assassination, you go, I should have been smart at the beginning and send them adult-shaped diapers, because they would never listen. And remember this, anybody can tell the truth, but people who hate you, Doug Hagman, hate me, David Langford, and the list is increasing. No matter what we say, it could never be from God, or it could never be the truth, because after all, they hate us. And Jesus said they hated me without a cause. Now think about this. What did Jesus do to be hated? He went about healing all that were sick. He went about casting out devils. He went about feeding multitudes. He did miracle after miracle after miracle, setting the captives free, speaking in parables to the people that they could relate to in the people's language, but that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all the religious Usees could not understand, because they were looking for a religious reason or a perspective that would justify their faith, their goodness, their superiority, and the emphasis is on their, or my. Unfortunately, the unholy trinity, little t, in the world today is me, myself, and I. And don't forget the iPhone, because I can only take 8,655,294 selfies and post them on the internet and become pretty close to a billionaires. Keeping up with the Kardashians, all I can say is this: that should show you what we are in love with, our own mirror images. So, to summarize, what happens if there's a plot? For those of you who don't get it, the current head of the United Nations, the guy that's going to take over from Ban Ki-moon or whatever, is a rabid anti-Christian who has done nothing to stop, speak up, or even won't won't even go along with the word genocide, as our brothers and sisters across the world are being wiped out, murdered, mutilated, and everything that you could do to a human being is underway. Remember, the bloodlust, the appetite of demons expressed through humans. So, Doug, I'll put this to you. It's probably been hard for you, too, to put into perspective how we can have a nuclear war on a hair trigger now, and both sides battling in the word realm and arena, and the current occupants of the administration pushing for that war. And how can you explain that in light of 400 plus admirals, generals, military officers, the best, our U.S. military? I'm aware of the defense expenditures that are just nothing but, clipping the American taxpayer, but our weapon systems being outdated, 50% of the aircraft not flying. And then the biggest thing I find it's interesting is the war that the military, this is not all inclusive, but the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army have waged against the living God, all the barriers. I just put up I'm going to put it up. A story came in that now the Navy is suing for the right to wear makeup on the ship, okay? Makeup. I guess you can't wear makeup. You can be a trans this, a trans that, but you can't be a makeup, dressed up in makeup. So my question to you is, how can that be explained? How can the Russian troops, the Gurkhas, by the way, I think it was Dave Hodges that had some of the pictures of the actual troops out in the fields of Colorado.
Yep.
How can that be explained any other way?
You're bringing up, obviously, the empire beneath the ice, how the Nazis won World War II. Here's something interesting, and this is going to be critical to launch me into the next thing. I'm going to bring everybody to Exodus 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'm not going to read all of it, but just the highlight, the verses and the ones that I think really illustrate how God is actually bringing out everybody to harden their hearts against Donald Trump for a reason, and it's going to be a great reason for the believers. This is something from a guy, I'll just say somebody in Vancouver, Washington. I have permission to use his name, but he says, "Hey, Steve, I love your True Legends, the Unholy Sea documentary. Just recently, not sure if you were aware of it by now, but a data leak from WikiLeaks on Hillary Clinton's email shows an email that was received from the former astronaut Edgar Mitchell. In it, he discussed the importance of ET disclosure along with the Vatican's involvement. To me, this immediately reminded me of the documentary, so I thought maybe you'd like to have a look for yourself." So it was in one of the Podesta thousands of emails. Now, the Unholy Sea, Doug, has had a pretty interesting effect because now people understand all what we're seeing, disconnected statements from the Pope. And by the way, when Tim Kaine had 2 glasses of water, that was a Jesuit signal. The Society of Jesus, obviously, which this Pope is, and obviously everything that Tim and our research team and Tom Horn and Chris Putnam and everybody has found out when we interviewed Leo Zagami, who I used to be an Illuminist, and, let's see, I forget Zachariah Sitchin's best friend's name, a very wealthy Italian man, a billionaire. He's the one that said on our Unholy Sea that an Anunnaki, fallen angel, came, sat on Zachariah's bed, and basically dictated to him. He also went into a statement about how the Vatican would pass back and forth between Zachariah Sitchin and themselves. They had obviously a liaison, alien artifacts and alien writings, and also kind of like a code breaker. And so that's what is interesting right now, because we're seeing aliens. We're seeing all the NASA lies that were told over decades now coming forward. There's life on this planet, maybe life on that planet. There was never water on Mars. Now we find there's water on Mars. Europa has underground oceans. Neptune has strange this, strange that. Alpha Centauri too far, but there's a new one. What is it? Alpha Proxima or something like that. So what's happening is revelation. This is what the book of Daniel talked about. Knowledge would run to and fro. and seal it up, Daniel, for the knowledge is yet, for the knowledge is that yet for an appointed time. Can't say that word. So when people ask me, how do we know we're in the last days? It's really simple. It's not that they've already happened, because even the preterists and the amillennialists and some of the people that believe the book of Revelation has already happened, they don't get the fact that the technology never ever existed for the mark of the beast. They never, none of them, not a single one of the people that said the book of Revelation has already passed ever embraced, to my knowledge, or wrote about transhumanism, genetic engineering, genetic Armageddon, xenogenesis, CRISPR technology. All these things from the time Francis Crick announced the discovery of DNA, all that stuff had been known. I said on Coast to Coast the other day, in the late, when Francis Bacon wrote, the New Atlantis, how did he know about all the ancient technology? Well, they got it from a previous higher technological civilization. Go look up Francis Bacon and the New Atlantis. And then what's important for people to understand now is this. There used to be a doctrine, it's an invalid doctrine, but that God has professional clergy and that, the people can never know him on their own. That's not true. That's the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which God says he hates. By allowing people to have access to the Word of God, and this was after the Reformation, and to read, that's when that famous statement that's out of the Bible, the just shall live by his faith. The just shall live by faith. So what happens is when people control the history of the past, Orwell said it, they who control the past determine the future. My statement, just to build off that, is they who control the past control the future. But what are they all trying to hide? Well, basically, they're trying to hide the true biblical history of, it goes right back to Genesis 6. There were giants in those days before the flood and after those days, when the sons of God saw that the daughters of earth were fair and came unto them. The typical response to that has been, well, giants don't have sex. Angels don't have sex. Jesus said in heaven they are neither given or taken in marriage. And I said, yep, that's heaven. We're talking about earth. Why do you think they call them the fallen ones? So, which brings me to Exodus. In praying about this thing that's going on with Donald Trump, and I'm telling you, brother, I mean, seriously, people absolutely are, and I'm talking about Christians, okay? I'm talking about Christians that have made the dumbest statements I've ever heard in life. Let me give you an example. I mentioned a former friend who I'd gotten into a pretty heated argument with in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This friend has been a good friend. He actually worked for me 2 separate times over 20 years. But when he made this statement, and this is the mindset, well, there have always been martyrs, and, and so it's just going to be. And then that made me a little frosty. And then he said we should attack Russia. And I went into the stratosphere, and I think probably I was the cheapest entertainment that fancy restaurant in Jackson Hole had on the upper floor, okay? And I'm not kidding you, Doug. I mean, I knew that, Vesuvius would seem tame because he was as ingrained in his position. We should attack Russia. I said, do you have any clue? See, this is the thing I want people to get at. They make World War III seem like a video game with a reset button. World War III, goodness, by the grace of God, it won't happen until the Lord's ready. But here's my question. I said, Lord, when will the final revealing of the sin's leaders be the tipping point for the launch, okay? And again, I got the same thing I got before, trying to get specific dates. He said, when all that could have heard and would have heard the lateness of the hour. And that, I think that really some awakened everlasting life and others awakened everlasting damnation.